So we're going to be talking about the way of wisdom. We're going to start Proverbs 1:1. It says, the Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel. The reason the book is written is given next. It says, it's to know wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding, to receive the instruction of wisdom, justice, judgment, and equity, to give prudence to the simple, to the young man knowledge and discretion. A wise man will hear and increase in learning when he hears these things. And a man of understanding will attain wise counsel. To understand a proverb, an enigma, the words of the wise and their riddles. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. But fools despise wisdom and instruction. Now, Proverbs, if you've read through it, it's made up mostly of kind of short wisdom sayings. It's made up of Proverbs. And sometimes they seem a little silly, sometimes, maybe a little bit annoying, actually. You're going to read things like, and this is a made-up example, but it says things in there like, he who is hungry will eat much, and he who is not hungry should go and work. And you're like, okay, well, what does that do for me? Or you'll read something like, he who is wealthy buys nice clothes, and he who is poor begs for them. And it's just like, well, what kind of wisdom is this? I've read through some of these Proverbs before, and it's like, what kind of wisdom is that? What is going on here? But the point of Proverbs isn't just to roll your eyes at some of these short sayings that seem to actually have no wisdom in them, but it's to search out the truth behind what they're trying to say. And so we're going to start off with having a little bit of fun this morning. We're going to look at different sayings around the world, and I realize that these aren't proverbs, these are idioms, but still, let's have some fun this morning with different sayings that occur around the world. If you speak French, you might say the saying, to cost the eyes of the head, which means to cost an arm and a leg. If you speak German, they have a saying that says, the morning hour has gold in its mouth. And that means the early bird gets the worm. If you speak Arabic, you say, repetition teaches the donkey. You don't want to be maybe told that one, but that means practice makes perfect. If you speak Tagalog, you would say, baptize it already, which means get it over with. Get it done with. Baptize it already. That's a good one. We could use that in church. Baptize that already. Brother, you need to baptize that already. If you speak Norwegian, there's a saying that says, to speak directly from the liver. I don't think anybody needs to be speaking directly from the liver, and this is sometimes a good thing, sometimes a bad thing, but it means you don't sugarcoat it. You speak directly from your liver. And these sayings, they're not proverbs or idioms, but they certainly, kind of like some of the sayings in Proverbs, they don't necessarily convey a whole lot of wisdom. Proverbs often kind of seem to be just observations about life, but they do, in fact, have deeper meanings. If you dig deeper and under the surface level on these observations, you're going to find some meaningful content worth thinking about. And as our opening scripture said, the scroll's intention, or in our modern day case, the book's intentions, is to give the reader wisdom, instruction, and understanding. It's to elevate your decision-making skills. And that's something we could probably all use a little bit of. So the opening tells us, if you are wise, you're going to listen to what this book has to say. And you're going to become smarter because of it. But if you are foolish, then you hate instruction. You hate someone in authority telling you what to do. You despise the wisdom that someone is trying to give you. This book is trying to give you wisdom. And if you are foolish, you're going to throw it in the garbage, and you're not going to listen to it at all. The majority of the book of Proverbs, it contains these small wisdom sayings, but the first 9 chapters is what we're going to dive into here this morning, and they're speeches given by a couple different characters. There's 4 different characters in the first 9 chapters. You have a wise, fatherly king, and he is paired up with a woman named Lady Wisdom. And it's these 2 first characters that offer the divine wisdom that's going to lead to stability and to life. And they are contrasted in these first 4 chapters by 2 other characters. You have a wicked man and a wily woman named Lady Folly. And their way of life may be, yes, kind of attractive, but it's seductive. And ultimately, it leads to disorder and death. And so these characters' speeches, they are forcing you to make a choice. Who are you going to listen to? Whose advice are you going to take? Who's going to be your life advisor? And these contrasting couples, they're symbols of many different voices trying to tell you how to live. And you may be defying a little bit this morning. You say, well, nobody can tell me how to live. No one's going to tell me what to do, or you're wrong. Everything is influencing you on how to live. You're wrong. The news is influencing you on how to live, whether you're watching left-wing media or right-wing media. Social media is telling you how to live. That's why so many young teenage girls suffer from depression, because they are seeing the fantasy life of other people, and they get caught up in it, and they don't have it, and so they're being influenced. I don't have that. It's telling you how to live. You don't have this. You need to go and get this. That's why the advertising business exists, because they're trying to tell you how to live. And it could be much more simple things, whether that be your workplace or your family or your friends. It's scientifically proven that you are a reflection of the 5 people you hang around most. So who are those people? Because they're telling you how to live, whether that's for better or for worse. Everybody, everything is competing for your attention. And all these different voices are trying to get inside your ear. But as we're going to see here in Proverbs, these 2 different contrasting couples go about trying to get your attention in a very different way. And the way that they try and get your attention is very telling of their ultimate goal for your life. So we're going to start in Proverbs Chapter 7. And before we are told the tactics of Lady Folly and what she's going to try and do, we are first given a warning about her. We are told to stick close to wisdom and instruction. Why? So that we may keep from the immoral woman, from the seductress who flatters with her words. Now, calling this woman that we haven't even necessarily met yet these titles, calling her by these things, is not an overstatement. It is not the author being rude. It is not to be taken lightly. And if anything, it's actually the nicest way to put it, without crossing the line. You see, I think sometimes we forget that we're supposed to hate sin. I think we forget that sometimes. Romans 12:9 says, let love be without hypocrisy. You're supposed to love, but abhor what is evil. Hate the evil thing and cling to what is good. Now let's be very clear. We're not called to hate people. That's not our job. That is the exact opposite. We're called to love people. And we know, I spoke about that, a couple Sundays ago, whatever, when we talked about who is my neighbor. Everybody's your neighbor. You're supposed to love people. But we're supposed to abhor what is evil. Detest the evil thing. And in our kind of Western society where we are privileged to live, evil is generally cloaked or kept in secret. It lurks in the basement because it's not in front of our faces. We don't really hate it like we should. because it's not apparent necessarily in our everyday life. Sin kind of exists for us in another realm. Whether that be online or not our neighborhood, it exists kind of over there, where we're not ultimately interacting with it. We don't really have a full comprehension of true evil here in Western society. It's not like other countries where sin is so apparent, is so rampant, where the flags of Israel and America are burned, where populations are hated because they have a minimal amount of God consciousness, because they're Zionists. Saudi Arabia just executed 81 people the other day. We don't really know what true evil looks like. We don't interact with that on an everyday basis. I've had a peek into some of these countries that act this way, and it's scary. It is terrifying. I cannot imagine living in these countries, because I don't even really want to address it or get into it a whole lot more, because it's disgusting. It's soul-wrenching. There's countries in the world where the devil reigns supreme, where someone in the village is going to pay the price for the actions of somebody else if they go against those who are in power. I've spoken to missionaries who say, at first, whenever we were in the country, we used to get physically attacked, but then a family put their protection over us, and so we don't have those problems anymore. We don't know, really, what true evil looks like over here. And for that reason, we don't really hate sin as much as maybe we ought to. When foreigners come to Canada, they don't have to worry about being physically attacked. We welcome them in. We say, hey, good to have you here. That's what Canada is built on, immigration. We do a lot of it. I don't have to lie about my belief system here when I'm trying to get hired. Nobody cares, really. I mean, yeah, sure, people have opinions, but I'm not being discriminated against and violently treated because I believe in God. But that happens in the world. Sin is ugly, and Lady Folly is detestable. And so we're given a fair warning about that. And in Proverbs 7, we are given a scene of someone peeking out of their window through the blinds. And they see what our translation says is a young man. But in the kind of original language, the meaning is a young boy. A pre-teen boy. And this young boy is walking along the street, and he comes to the corner of the street, and in the middle of the night, he takes the path that leads to Lady Folly's house. Let's first acknowledge that all of this is happening at night, under cover, in secret, when everybody is supposed to be asleep, safe in their house. It's happening when your activities are a little bit more anonymous. All of this happens under the cover of darkness. And it's there that Lady Folly is standing on the corner of the street, and she meets this young boy, and she wears, what she wears is not meant to deceive you. She is not dressing modestly to try and trick you. No, what she wears is exactly who she is. She is a woman of seduction. She's not lying to you. She's not making a front about it. She's open and honest. Here is what I am. She is dressed the part. She is loud and she is rebellious. She is lurking at every single corner, and she kisses the young boy and she tells him, I've been looking for you. She tells him she's been desperately searching for him. And so she begins to try and seduce this preteen boy. And she's telling this preteen boy that her husband isn't home. And they're free to do whatever they want. Sin is disgusting. And it makes an attempt to be alluring, to be attractive, but it only looks good because all of the ugly parts are hidden in the darkness. Under the veil of darkness, it is able to show its good side. But if you brought this situation out into the light, instead this scene is happening during the day. If that was what was occurring, then the cops are going to be called. If you see this woman trying to seduce this preteen boy, somebody would intervene and help the young man, but they're not, because it's under the cover of darkness. And Lady Folly, she seduces the young boy with her words and with her promises. And the Bible says he goes in after her like an ox goes to the slaughter. Because she doesn't really love this young boy. She doesn't, in fact, care for him at all. This is sin, really, in its most obvious form. This is the reality of sin, to draw you in and leave you helpless, to seduce you with empty promises and take your innocence and your future. And the boy was seduced into thinking that this would be a night of pleasure, that this would be a good time, but little did he know that this seduction cost him his life. He was promised a good time, but he's been living in misery ever since. He was promised that he was going to have fun, but his mind has been racked with guilt, and he can't stop thinking about it. His own thoughts said that he's going to enjoy this situation, that it would be pleasurable, that he's going to enjoy this course of action under the cover of darkness. But now that it's daytime, he's not so proud of it anymore. He's not been the same little boy since. Sin preys on the youth, and it preys on your mind, and it preys on the innocent, and it preys during darkness. It insistently seeks you out, hoping to capture you and destroy you. And there are no fulfilled promises in it. It's empty and it's lacking, and it leaves you feeling the same way. This is the way of folly. And that is Proverbs Chapter 7. It's a dark tale of the death of a youth. But we're not supposed to be completely discouraged yet. Because in the next chapter, we're told of the way of wisdom. And we may think all hope is lost for the boy, that he's lost in Lady Folly's house, but it's here in the beginning of chapter 8 that Lady Wisdom is depicted standing at the crossroads at the top of a high hill, and the gates of the city are directly behind her. She stands at the entrance of the city, and she's calling to all those who are in need of help, calling to people to learn how to judge circumstances correctly, calling to those who need to hear the truth. She calls to those who are stuck in wickedness and proclaims to them that she has nothing to do with the wickedness that they chose to operate in. But yet, if you desire her help, she will come and help you. She wants to help those who can't help themselves. And so she pleads to those who are lost that instead of choosing personal enrichment or personal desires, who are stuck in that same never-ending loop of sin, that they should instead chase her instruction. She tells them that her words, merely her words, are more valuable than rubies, than anything that you could desire in this world. Nothing compares to what wisdom can give you. And she yells not during the night, but at the daytime, at the entrance of the city, at the crossroads where everybody passes and brings their business. She says, stop chasing your own desires. It's getting you nowhere. You've continually chosen to do what you want, what makes you feel good. You've chosen your own way, your own selfish way. You were feeling down, so you chose alcohol and drugs to kind of minimize how you were feeling, or you were feeling alone, and so you isolated yourself because you thought that nobody liked you, and now you're dealing with depression, and you just stop choosing your same foolish decisions. Stop going your own way. Look at where your choices have gotten you. It's bringing you no pleasure. It's just painful experience after painful experience. You're getting nowhere. You're stuck in this never-ending sin loop, and sometimes you try and get out of it, and maybe you do good for a month, but then you just fall back, and it all repeats again. And so wisdom cries out in the daylight, please, if you could just hear my voice, if you would receive my instructions, if you came into the safety of the city and listened to my words, you'd be so much better off. I hate evil and I hate wickedness, but I love righteousness. And if you choose to love what is good and what is true, then I will love you. You were chasing after a love. You were chasing after something that makes you feel good, but you haven't found it yet. But I promise you, if you just choose to love what is good, then I will love you. If you turn away from wickedness, you will receive my love. I want to offer that to you. Proverbs 8, she's making a speech. She says, by wisdom, by me, kings reign, and rulers decree justice. By me, princes rule, and nobles, and all those who judge the earth. By wisdom, kings reign, and rulers decree. This word, decree, means to literally carve out or engrave. It refers to how ancient kings would carve laws of justice into tablets. Think of the Ten Commandments carved into those tablets. And so that same word, decree, is used later on. It looks a different form for us when we read in English, but that same word, decree, is used later on in her speech when she's talking about the beginning of time and creation. She says, when God prepared the heavens, I was there. When he decreed, when he drew a circle, when he decreed on the face of the deep, when he established the clouds above, when he strengthened the fountains of the deep, when he assigned to the sea its limit, so that the waters would not transgress his command, when he decreed, when he marked out, when he decreed the foundations of the earth. I know we're shifting course kind of quickly right here, but in creation, God makes order out of chaos. And he splits the dark, chaotic waters in half. And he separates the chaos from above and below. And he assigned to the sea a limit so that the waters don't cross his command. God carves out. He decrees a boundary. And he creates dry land. And he tells the chaotic sea, you can only go so far. You cannot pass the point that I say, and this is so that humans can live peacefully on the land, not in chaos. God sets a limit to the chaos. And by God's carving abilities, by him making the decree, chaos can only go so far, and it's limited. By God creating boundaries, he says, chaos, you can go no farther than what I tell you you can. Have you been living in chaos? The chaos that's constantly overran you, and now it's kind of infected every single part of your life, and there's no place where you can run from it, although you continually to try and get away from it. There's nowhere that you can escape the chaos, or at least so you think. You think that there's nowhere left for you to run. You're like that young boy in Lady Folly's house. You think you're stuck there. and you think it's over and it's done. And your life's purpose has been taken away from you, and you can't find happiness anymore. And how are you going to turn the situation around, because your future is all chaos? But Lady Wisdom is still calling out to you, and she says, whoever finds me finds life and obtains favor from the Lord. If you find me, you find life. Are you hearing Lady Wisdom's call today? Are you hearing the proclamation that says you can have safety today? You can enter in and find rest. You can come into this city that I'm calling you to, and you can come into God's presence, and you can find life if you heed wisdom's call, if you turn away from wickedness and turn away from the weight that's dragging you down, and if you listen to the instruction of the Lord and enter into the city, He's going to carve a boundary around you. When you enter into relationship with God, just like in creation, He's going to take His finger and He's going to draw a circle around you, and He's going to say, chaos, you can go no farther. Your rule here is over. Your reign here is over. He draws a circle around you. He makes His decree around you, and He says, chaos doesn't reign here anymore. It has a limit. It cannot cross my line. We need the decree of God in our life. There's still a call. There's still an opportunity to receive life here this morning. If you would just answer the call, He wants to give you life. He wants to do a work in your life. In the very first chapter of Proverbs, wisdom calls outside. She raises her voice in the open square, not in secret. She cries out in the chief concourses, and at the opening of the gates of the city is where she speaks her words for everybody to hear. It's not a secret. Life is not supposed to be a secret. God's love isn't supposed to be a secret. Everybody can hear. How long, you simple ones, will you love simplicity? When she says simple ones, she doesn't mean you're stupid. She just means you've been making a wrong choice, and you continue to make your own selfish choice. How long are you going to love making the same mistakes over and over again? Scorners delight in their scorning, and fools hate knowledge, but please turn. I know my words may sound a little harsh and sometimes a little bit extreme about the life change you got to take, but if you turn at my rebuke, I will pour out my Spirit on you. I'm going to make my words known to you. If you listen to the call that is going forth, you're going to be filled with God's Spirit. Music, if you come back, please. God wants to make His instruction known to you. He's not trying to hide it. There's no secret that you have to try and find. He's calling out at the gates of the city. If you could just please come and listen to wisdom. Stop making the same mistakes. I'm going to fill you with my Spirit. If you turn away from what is evil, I want to fill you with my Spirit. He wants to make His word known to you. He wants you to know where to go. He doesn't want you to wander around and be lost anymore, but He's going to instruct you and guide you. You're going to be able to conquer. You're going to be able to overcome the chaos that's messed up your life, because you're going to be filled with the Spirit of God. You're going to be filled with His Spirit. The way that you can overcome the chaos is by being filled with the one who decrees that it can no longer have access to your life. The way you cast it out is by being filled with God's Spirit. And that way, when you pray in tongues, it's God literally praying through you. He takes control of your tongue, and He starts speaking in a heavenly language, and He starts praying things over you that you don't know what to pray, but God knows what to pray for you. And He wants to fill you with His Spirit so that He can pray over your life and decree a boundary around you. Romans 8:26, it says the Spirit helps us in our weaknesses. God knows that we're weak and we're prone to fail, but His Spirit helps us in our weaknesses. He knows that we struggle and we mess up and we need help sometimes, and we don't always know how to get the help or where to turn, but when you're filled with God's Spirit, He begins to guide you and He helps you in your weakness. You need to be filled with God's Spirit today. Whether that's your first infilling or a refilling, you need to be filled continually, renewed and filled with His presence. Acts 4:12 says there's no salvation anywhere else. Nobody's offering salvation except for Jesus. You've got to be filled with His Spirit. You need the power of His Spirit to overcome the chaos. If you want to overcome the chaos this morning, you say, God, I need your word to speak into my life. I need your presence to pray through me, your perfect will, God. It's time to kick the devil out. It's time to kick the sin that so easily besets you out of your life. And the way that you do that is being filled with His presence. Let's stand here this morning. It's time to ask God to draw a boundary around you. You don't want chaos invading and overrunning your life anymore. But God, I need you to cast a boundary around my life. God, I need you to set up protections around me. Jesus, be a fence around me every single day. Lord, I need you to protect me. I need you to guide me along life's way. I'm not going to hold you back any longer. Why don't you make your way down to the altar and say, God, I need your Spirit. God, I need that decree that says chaos can't be here any longer. God, I need your Spirit to rewrite.